think I first became aware of the Grand when I was about 6, and my grandmother brought me to see Giselle the ballet. And I had ballet lessons as a child, so I was fascinated by the lights and the scenery and the standard of dance. And then I think we were brought to pantos every year with the Sunday school. So we used to come and see those, and I was fascinated by the cloths going up and the comedy. And then I think the first time I was on the Grand stage, I was in a John Chilver's gang show, and I was a dancing bear. I was a tap dancing bear and I was a ballet dancer. And I've still got the photographic evidence, so I was definitely there. And I was amazed by the size of the stage and the size of the auditorium, and backstage, which was the old backstage, not like it is now, and everybody moving around and having their jobs to do. And I think I was always in rehearsal as a child, so it just sort of cemented things and brought things together for me. I think the Grand's really important to me because whenever I feel in here, I feel like I'm coming home. I think it's quite unusual that all my family have performed here except for my husband. My mum and dad performed before my father even directed. And then my sister met her husband on this stage. My 2 nephews are both performers and they've worked here. And my 2 sons have worked here as well. The only one who hasn't worked is my husband, and I think it's highly unlikely because he's Mr. Practical and most probably the voice of reason within the family. I always remember my grandmother would come every week to see the rep in the summer. She'd have the same seats every week. And so it was something that was always in my psyche as a child. And in our house, we listened to not even backing tracks, records of shows. I couldn't tell you anything about pop in the 1980s, but I could name the original cast of Chorus Line. The first time I performed on the Grand Theatre stage as a young adult, I think would have been in an Abbey Players production. It would either be Little Me or it'd be Wizard of Oz. Rhea Jones was Dorothy, and my sister and I were Munchkins and Jitterbugs and everything else my father needed us to be because my dad directed it. It was a great experience. The camaraderie and the enjoyment of all different ages, it really made you feel that you were involved in something special. Massive audiences, the house here seats over 1,000, and really good ticket sales, and just a great way to be involved with all generations in the same place. My mum and dad were founders, amongst others, of Abbey Players, and Abbey Players this was when they were younger, and they were a great group that did very unusual shows, not like the really big ticket sales shows. And they performed eventually in the Llewellyn Hall in the YMCA. And towards the late 70s, early 80s, there was a big fundraising push, and they asked for Abbey Angels to sponsor them to move them to the Grand. My dad by this time had directed for 24 years in the local area, but he'd never worked on the Grand stage to my knowledge. So to come here and have these massive facilities and a professional crew was a really big deal in the family. So Dad came here. It was, I believe, How to Succeed in Business. It came in, he got the show in, they dress rehearsed it, and then he was ill with flu for the rest of the week. I think he may have seen the opening night. I think it was just such a big build-up. But he was very proud to be working here and did a number of major productions here for years. And Abbey Players is still going, and I had the pleasure of going back and directing for them for about 6 years, which was really interesting. It was like we brought the whole thing a big circle. I've been directing for Harry Youth Theatre, for about 20 years. They've been in existence for, I think, 2 years more than that. I was unable to do the first couple of productions because I was working away. But eventually it popped up again, and I was invited in to direct Little Shop of Horrors and Sound of Music. The company was founded by Louise Doyle and Robert Francis Davis, and it was Louise that invited me. And I couldn't believe my luck, because as much as I'd been directing professionally for quite a while, I hadn't worked here at the Grand. I mean, it's a theatre that has a massive status as a theatre. The professional crew again that I was working with, the facilities, I absolutely loved it. And ironically, my parents came to see they came to see everything I did. They came to see Sound of Music, and it was one of the last times I saw my dad because he was sitting in the circle. And when I went to see them in the interval, I asked, what did you think of the show? My mum loved it, she was crying or something. And my dad said, we did okay. That was gushing for my father, that was fine. And I remember he had a really nice evening because a lot of the crew came up to talk to him because they'd worked with Dad over the years, and he was really thrilled about that. And then sadly he passed away afterwards, but I'm really glad that he came in and saw a piece of my work on this lovely, lovely stage that we had both shared a piece of, really. Harry's has continued to grow from strength to strength. It's very much a family unit, as in we really nurture our students. We don't audition them to come in. They come in and we make most of what they can do. It's more about confidence building and being proud of yourself. We don't expect them all to go onto the stage. That's not possible eventually professionally. So we really try to nurture them, but we also expect commitment, and we're quite disciplined. And I think these are things that when you go forward actually work really well for you in a professional world. I think Harry's, I must have done, I don't know, over 50 productions. I feel myself extremely lucky to have worked on this fantastic venue for all these years. I think my favourite of Harry's is two. I loved Billy Elliot. The children just engaged in it completely. We had a fantastic cast. And we were brought back because we sold out. And I also think I loved, a couple of years ago, we did Les Miserables in the arts wing, because with the school's licence, you're not allowed to do it on the main stage. And so that created quite a few challenges about how to stage Les Mis in an arts wing with no proscenium arch, no fly-in facilities. But the kids rose to the challenge, and we did, and I do think it's some of our finest work. Harry's is still continuing at they've come back after COVID, I'm very pleased to say, with very healthy numbers. And we're now working on a variety show shortly with about 120 students on stage. And then this year we're performing Nativity the musical. So that's going to be great fun. And I think it's important to say about Harry's, yes, there's me as the director, and there's a musical director, and there's a choreographer, and we have a fantastic lighting designer and stage manager. But it's underpinned by a team led by Sharon Roberts and Debbie Clee of fantastic volunteers, our Harry's Angels, and we really couldn't function without them. So I'm forever grateful for everything it does. It's very much a team effort. I've been really lucky when I've come here because I've had great support, as Harry's have, from the management here. First of all, Gary Isles was a huge supporter of ours, and Paul Hopkins latterly, and we're just about to start working with a new manager here, Grant. We also, I think that the staff here are great. They know us. I always feel supported when I come in here. I've learned over the years, particularly with the lighting designer, Chris Barrett, and a lot of the other crew, that I'm not afraid to say I don't quite know where I'm going with something, because generally as a team we can work it out. I think it's important to learn that you can ask questions and risk looking a bit dull maybe, and then I put that in my brain, and then I think, right, next time I do this now I'm going to know that. But I don't think there's ever a show where I don't learn something. I think what's great is that it's not just the main stage, that we've got the arts wing. Another favourite production of mine was we did Bouncers with Jack Roberts' team, and that worked really well in the Circle Bar. And that weekend, I believe there was something on in the arts wing, there was something on in the Circle Bar, and there was something on the main stage. And the buzz here was fantastic, and I think we could be moving more towards other performance areas in the theatre, definitely. Two other favourite productions of mine would be Swansea Girls and Swansea Women. I count myself so fortunate to have been invited by Lyn Mackay to direct both of those. Original productions, they bring their own challenges, but I was really happy with the end result, and in fact revisited Swansea Women a couple of years later with another local amateur company called Cocket Operatic in a different theatre. And it's very interesting with original work because you have to work with the composer and the writer. Luckily Lyn is a very generous writer, but sometimes you have to workshop things and see how they work. So yeah, they were two of my favourite productions as well. I think the role of the director is really interesting. Could be stressful if you let it be so, but we try our best. It generally starts with a choice of a show. Now, it depends on whether you're invited in as a freelance director. You just get given a script, or it might be, in Harry's case, I'm quite involved. So in the discussion about which show we should do next, which would suit the students, which would sell tickets, what's current. And so that depends. So I suppose the first thing I do then is I get a script. I'm very lucky, I tend to work quite often with the same creative team. So there's almost like an unspoken script that goes on between us. So we get the script and the music, and then we decide how we're going to cast it, how we're going to schedule the rehearsals. We generally work backwards. We'll look at the date of the show and then go backwards. Some shows I will rehearse for 6 months. Some shows I will rehearse for a week. It just depends how many people are in it, the age group, and whether people are professional actors who are available in the day, or whether I'm working with people who do other things, or the students who are in school, and then I work in the night generally, or maybe on the weekend. So we get the script. We look at when the date of the show is. We work backwards so that we know at which point we should be running the show to make it slick. Then we cast the show. Then most probably you'll have music rehearsals first. And then I'm a director that generally goes from page one and works through in order, because I think for your cast they have a better idea of the through line of the show, as opposed to just plucking modular scenes out. Doesn't always work for actors. I think I liaise with the costume team, with the stage manager and the props team. I sit with the lighting designer, communicate with the sound department. So it's quite a busy sort of juggling act. Work with the musical director. I work with Jonathan Lycett generally, and the choreography in Harry's is done by Helen Stevens. So we just work things through in a methodical manner, and yes, things go wrong, but you learn over the years to adapt, and you end up finding out that you can solve most problems because you have a deadline. So that's what happens in my job, and it is interesting because I like to reinvent. I don't often, even if I repeat work, go back and think, what did I do the last time? I might go back to see the running of the stage in order, or if I have a problem with the show, I might go back and think, what did I do the last time? But I generally start with a clean slate. My style will come through it, no doubt, but I do try to ring the changes. I think otherwise your work becomes static and not very interesting for you as a director. I really am quite excited about where the Grand is going, because I think that we now have new energies in the theatre, who will make changes and hopefully move it forward yet again. I think that, as I said before, we have so many performance opportunities in this theatre that it would be great to be seeing it going forward as a producing house and finding its own niche in the market, because we have a lovely new arena and we have other theatres in the area, but the Grand is unique. It's older and absolutely beautiful auditorium, and I think it needs its own niche in the market. So I think that's definitely the way forward, is producing within the theatre, using local talent. I think that would be great. I personally want to continue directing. I think I like to reinvent myself. I don't want to just roll out productions every year. Yes, you have a style and you're never going to get rid of that. I went back to university recently and did a degree in Guildford School of Acting in theatre, and that opened my mind to lots of other styles of theatre, not just musical theatre, Shakespeare and Ibsen and all other things that maybe I hadn't read so much about. So I think it would be great going forward if I could go into slightly different avenues as well as musical theatre. I think that would be really interesting.